So, are you out there today wondering why you may not be achieving the level of success that you're looking for? Are you trying to get more, be more, do more, all the things that we've been taught and brought up to be? Well, today we're going to have a discussion as to why that might not be necessarily happening for you as fast as you might be wishing it to be. I've got my friend Greg Young here again with us. We're going to dive into a book. I might screw up the title, so you might need to correct me. But the Let Them Theory, is that correct? The
Yep.
Let Them Theory.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Mel Robbins, I believe, is the author of that book, and it's something that Greg's been reading, and he was just kind of going over the high level points of it. So I'm going to come to this conversation with a lot of questions, meaning he was sharing with me a lot of the topics. I'm like, yeah, I think that we can have a great discussion about that here on the podcast. So that's why I'm super excited to dive in. So if you're, like I said, if you're experiencing some lack, if you're not necessarily seeing the results that you're looking for in your life, hang in there with us. This is going to be a fun conversation. We're going to dive into this book here today, and hopefully it'll be something that'll resonate with you that you can actually learn from, take some immediate action. That's kind of the whole point, is to put some of these ideas and concepts into action immediately, so you jump off each episode. And that way we can start producing and doing more bigger, better things in our life every single day. So the Let Them Theory, tell me more, Greg. I'm curious a little bit more about that. Even just that title is intriguing.
Yeah. So it's a book, like you said, by Mel Robbins, The Let Them Theory. My wife and I were reading this in a book club, which I would highly recommend because you get to experience, different books that you might not necessarily have even heard of or other topics that are adjacent to kind of what you're learning. So really cool, really fun experience. Get to meet a lot of different people as well. But yeah, this was a book that came to us. We didn't choose it. I was familiar with Mel Robbins. I listen to her podcast every once in a while and her TED Talks. So she's very good at what she does. You know, she's a public speaker, and yeah, the book is very interesting. We can kind of dive into some specifics, but in theory, in her theory, the Let Them theory is, basically just not really just letting other people do their thing and not having the want or need to control others just because people are going to do what they're going to do pretty much no matter what.
No
So
matter what.
yeah, so for me to try to control what Randy's going to say next, it's just going to be just a lot of stuff in my mind that I don't really need in there because I have no idea what he's going to say, and just why would I waste my time, energy, and effort on that? So it's just let them do their own thing, and then bringing it back to me, it's let me figure out a way. How do I want to respond? How do I want to react? How do I want to think about this conversation going in to this podcast with Randy, for example? So it's more of let me figure out what I'm doing and let them do what they're going to do anyway.
Love that. I see that in myself. I see that within my children. So that's where when you brought this idea to me for the podcast, I was like, yeah, let's have a discussion about that. So it's hard. I think us as humans, and I'm just going to put myself into this category. We're always worried about what they or them is kind of what we're using in this context of this conversation, but what other people think about us, what they're saying about us, what they're doing. We're always, uh, I should correct myself. You're placing judgment on other people. It's like you're judging other people all the time. You're thinking they should be doing something different than what they are. How difficult? I mean, does it talk about the difficulty and kind of different things? How to number one, even recognize that you're doing it.
Mhm.
You can be doing it as simple. I've made conversations, or I've had conversations with you on this podcast about even just having different feelings when you're driving a car. You're judging how people are driving. You're judging how everything becomes a judgment at some point, which then puts those thoughts of thinking that you're in control or that you have the ability to take control of that situation at any given time. Am I hitting that closely to kind of what she was talking about in that book, or am I way off, or what are your thoughts on that so far?
Yeah, no, you definitely hit the nail on the head. I think even in the book, if I'm not mistaken, I think she talks about driving and drivers and,
Oh, does
somebody,
she? Does she bring that up in the book?
I believe so.
Wow.
Yeah, when somebody cuts you off and it's just, all right, cool, let them go. Maybe they're in a hurry. Maybe, they're on the way to the hospital. You don't know their story. And I get it. Like when you're in the moment, it's like, oh, that guy just cut me off. You're not thinking of let them. But if you kind of switch your mindset a little bit to, well, what if I did think, let them do that, because I can't control the fact that they just cut me off. Now they're 200 yards ahead of me anyway. I'm not going to do anything. Let me just kind of accept it. It's part of life. It's going to happen again, most likely. So why am I going to let that affect my mood and my day, just for 5 seconds of somebody cutting you off? So it really is just like a top of mind thing, where it's just, you know what, let them say that, let them react that way, let them cut me off. It's not going to change, my day for the most part. And then kind of bringing it back to yourself of, let me calm down, let me relax, I mean, have I ever cut somebody off? Yeah, probably.
I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure I have. I'm sure I might have yesterday. Who knows?
Exactly. So it's, you kind of flip it on its head as well. So it's just kind of having that perspective. And if you do it really quickly, if it is top of mind, like me and my wife, we've had conversations about this, and I was just like, just we literally say that, just let them X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, just let it
And then you
go.
just, all right, fine. And then you're just like on to the next thought, so it does work. If, like anything, it does work if you use it and it is top of mind. It's just keeping it top of mind and actually pulling that tool out of the toolbox and using it, because you could use it quite often, right?
Sure.
Day to day, it can definitely add up. So if you start using it, it's one of those tools that you can kind of keep on using over and over again. And, it might help your mental state, hopefully it does.
Yeah, hopefully it does. So the word that's come to my mind as you're describing that, and I love that, is awareness. You become aware. So it's a thought, it's a feeling, it's an emotion, really, of feeling like you're in control or feel like you should be in control. That judgment, and becoming aware that you're doing it is probably the first step of really taking it, like you said, almost even just relaxing into it, just letting things just be. Things just are. There isn't necessarily a right or a wrong. I've made in the past few episodes here, I've talked about the meaning we attach to everything, and we work towards attaching a meaning of correct or incorrect, right versus wrong, up versus down, left versus right. And it's, well, in reality, everything just is, right? And so when we detach from this meaning, that of this judgment, of this worrying about them, it allows us then to take back control of our thoughts, take back control of our responses, understanding that, yeah, that person, whatever's going on in their life, may or may not be having a good day, may or may not have seen you. It's like we're just using that. I'm using that driving example, right? There's been times that, yeah, I'll pull out in front of somebody, and a lot of times it's because I didn't see them, or I didn't calculate in my mind how quickly they were moving, right? They were going a lot faster than what I assumed, until I get in front of them and I look in my rearview mirror and, oh my gosh, they're on my tail. It's like, I need to speed up fast.
Hmm.
But anyways, my point is that you don't know what that other individual is doing, or what they're going through. And if you're placing so much time, energy, and effort of yourself, because that's all you're doing, you're expending energy of your own mind, thought power on them, you're stealing it really away from yourself, from your
Hmm.
ability to then respond correctly, or different. Let's maybe put it that way, because I don't think there is a right or a wrong. It's just different. And when you do that differently, then you can get a different outcome in your life. So for example, right? So I've talked about core wounds. I've talked about self-sabotage in the past. So a lot of times when I've had these feelings or negative thoughts come into my mind, right? This judgment comes in, it'll send me into a negative tailspin, to the point where one negative thing like that can really ruin a day, ruin a week, ruin the next conversation you're about ready to have, ruin the podcast episode you're about ready to record. I mean, it's amazing how, if you think about it, not taking control of these responses based on these emotional triggers that are going on around us all the time, and worrying about them so much instead of worrying about yourself, can really, like I said, really spin your life in a negative way. That if you just take back control, that's where I wanted to bring that back up, as far as like tie that back around into awareness. Once you're aware that it's happening, you can then take different control and different actions. And with those different actions, you can get better or different results. And once again, that's been the secret for me, is just that awareness and the control of the things that I can control. Maybe where we need to pivot this conversation, is because that's where it's, what can you control? And you being whoever's listening to me right now. So it's me, for me, myself, right? What can I control? What can I can control? And it's really a relatively small amount of things.
Yep.
We feel like we're in control of a lot, but in reality, it's only just a few things that we really can control. And our thoughts, feelings, all of those types of things are definitely part of that. Is that kind of where you would take that part of the conversation as far as what I've shared with so far?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right. Yeah, we're not in control of a lot of things that I think we are in control of. Um,
But we strive to get that, right? It's like that's one thing that I think as humans, that's what we crave is
mhm.
control or certainty. When in reality, life, there is no certainty. There's very little, if any, comfort, control, certainty. So yeah, it's very difficult. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, there's, in life, especially as you kind of go through, as you get older, you go through different stages of life. Because I think when I was younger, I felt like, and this is probably a weird way to look at it, but I think when I was younger, I felt like I had more control, even though I probably didn't. But I think I was just more naive and not aware of everything that was going on around me. And,
Right.
in your
Yeah.
20s, maybe even in your 30s. But now, in my mid 40s here, I'm like, wow, I really don't have control over a lot of important things that could affect my life. So, like you're talking about, you might as well focus on the things that you can control because ultimately that'll give you that sense of, okay, my life is in control, even though there's all these things spinning around you that could go up, could go down, could go left. But the things that you do control, that small finite amount, it'll give you that sense of, all right, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm focusing on, and at least from this small circle that I'm in that I control, those results are on me, right? It's not somebody else's decision or political view or whatever that is going to influence me because that's not going to hit me in that small circle.
Love that. So I was just even having a conversation with my daughter just the other day. She's having a situation in her life which is generating a little bit of fear and anxiety, right? Worrying about this future that's going to be coming to her. And a lot of it is because she just doesn't have the experience in her own life. She's early 20s. So it kind of goes along with what you said. When you're that age, you don't necessarily know a lot at that point, right? You don't have a lot of life experiences. So I was trying to work with her on not being so focused on the future, not so focused on the outcome, but more present and in the moment, focusing on what she can control. And what that was literally right in that moment. What were some of the things? So she has this desired outcome, right? So you have a goal. We'll call that a goal, right? You have a desired outcome, but she was focusing too much on the gap between today and that goal, right? Which is creating that anxiety. And I was telling her, okay, focus on you can have that goal, that outcome that you desire, but let's focus on just today. Quit worrying about what other people are going to say. Quit worrying about what other people are going to think. Quit worrying about everything except for what you can control, which was what she could do in that moment, whether it's a nutritional thing, whether it was looking something up on the internet, right? It just whatever it was that she needed to do in that moment, but then be okay with that. That's it, right? You don't need to do anything else other than that in that moment because then you stack those wins, you stack that positive action that she took. Let's say she was just looking up some information, which will probably lead her to the next step. My point being is that if she can just continues to focus on each one of those steps and quits worrying about what's going on out there with them, then she can reach this desired outcome. It might not be exactly what she's thinking in this exact moment because it might change a little bit as she goes along this path, but that's where when you mentioned that as far as being in that age, not with that experience, it can be a little bit challenging. You're not sure what to do, how to do it. It's another reason why I love trying to produce the podcast, right? Share my experiences, share some of the stories. Same thing with you, Greg. I just love sharing back with people. They can hear some different ideas, different uh, points of view. Maybe it can help somebody in this journey for themselves. But the idea today is that really take control of the things that you can do today, not necessarily tomorrow. Worry about tomorrow, which will then become today, which is kind of funny when you think about it. I don't know. I think that's funny. Tomorrow becomes today, but all you can do is focus on today, right now. What are the things that you can control? So maybe list out some of the things that you can think of, some of the things that people can maybe work on that they can control today. You kind of gave me a mental diagram just a little bit before we hit record. Maybe go over that for the folks and describe that because I think that's crucial at this stage. If people can become aware that it's happening in their life, but then what do they do? And I think that's where this control piece, or at least what they can control in the moment, is really going to be crucial for them to reach this desired outcome in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to share that. And I actually got it off a podcast. I want to give him credit. It is called Change Made Easy. Really good podcast. He's a coach, and he just talks about, yeah, just how to make changes, habit changes, mindset, everything. So this is where I got this information from. But really simple exercise. You take a blank piece of paper. In the middle, you draw a small circle, and then around that circle you draw a medium-sized circle, and finally you draw one more circle that basically fills the rest of the page. Now in the first circle that you drew, the smallest one, this is everything that you have 100% control over. So in that circle you can write down everything that you have control over. Some examples would be your thoughts, your beliefs, the habits that you create, the food that you eat, the clothes that you wear, even I don't want to say family because you don't control your family. That's in the next one. But I will say your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, you definitely choose who you want to be with.
Yeah, the close proximity.
Close proximity
Sure.
relationships. Yeah. So that's the first circle. And the first circle is the smallest for a reason because we have very little control over everything once you fill out this whole diagram. The second circle is your sphere of influence. Basically, what do you have influence over? So, not 100% control, but you have some influence over. Some examples of that would be your friends. I guess, yeah, probably your friends, because you can control certain aspects of a friendship, what you put into it, what you take out of it. But
Yeah.
um,
So the second is more of a almost like an indirect
mhm,
thought, right? So when you have control of your own thoughts, feelings, emotions, so it's almost just like another layer outside of yourself. You have less control, but you still, so to me it's almost like thinking about it like a family member. So for myself, like I think of it maybe for like my kids, is that I have an influence on them. They have an influence even on me, but at the same time it's not direct influence. I can't jump in their brains and tell them what to do, even though I try to influence them to think and do certain things. With how's
right.
that sound?
Yeah, kind of like leading by example, right? So,
Yeah, there you go.
you've been doing the podcast for a long time now, and that just shows your children that you're consistent. This really matters to you, and they might look at you and say, "Oh yeah, my dad is really good at X, Y, and Z. He's really into personal development and mindset." And some of that will probably rub off on them. So that's the sphere of influence where you can influence them, but you can't control 100%. Hey, they're going to be in personal development and mindset. They may or they may not, but you're doing your best to kind of lead by example and be that beacon, right?
Love it. Love it. And then that third circle, the sphere, to me, it's like you can't control at all. It's kind of who we're talking about today. It's the them. It's the people that are out there beyond who you might not even know who these people are, but you're allowing what they say, do. You might get a negative comment if you're a podcaster, which I've had maybe a couple. But it is what it is. I don't even know these people. They don't
Yep.
know. They don't know me. I don't know them, but I can't allow them to influence me, which I would say that took a little bit of work, right? So that's where this personal development work for myself has come into play, to be able to keep moving forward, even though that, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and it's okay. It's no worries. But I think a lot of times we get caught up, and I say that very broadly as far as the we part, but we get caught up worrying so much about what other people are thinking or saying. We were talking just before we hit record, Greg, about kind of the, obviously with the political situation that's going on. And I don't get into politics a lot, and I know you don't either, but I just wanted to bring this up as a kind of an example, potentially as this outer sphere of allowing what other people are thinking, doing, what they believe. So that's kind of the interesting part for me, is that people are like dead set that what they believe is true. I don't care what side you're on. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter what side I'm on. It shouldn't matter to you what I believe.
Right.
But people are like literally arguing and fighting. But this is on text and on social media, right? And I try to stay away from it. Every now and then I'll go down a little bit of a rabbit trail just to kind of see what people are thinking and saying. And it's really fascinating every single time where once again they're projecting this thing that they're wrong and it's them, they're the problem. And when in reality, if they would just focus on themselves, focus on what can they control, which has kind of been this whole conversation we've had so far today, how much different, I would bet how much different their life could be. So these people, once again, that are pointing fingers. So we use that car example, pointing or pulling out in front of somebody. To think that because you believe something so deeply makes it true, when in reality, who
Doesn't.
knows? It
Yeah.
doesn't. It literally doesn't. But then to use that as a negative thing in your life, that's kind of the point that I want to make today, is that people are using these beliefs and these thoughts, this them, it's them, but it's creating negativity within their own life. That if they would take control, being aware that they're doing it, understanding that it's not accomplishing anything. It literally is not accomplishing anything because you cannot control any of it, what's going on. You can't control the outcomes of what these people are doing. You can't control what the other people are thinking or saying. You can't control what they believe because they're so far beyond your sphere of influence. So then I would flip it right back onto you folks and think about it. What are the things that you can instead control today? Maybe it's your diet. Maybe you need to focus on what you're eating or consuming. Maybe it's actually the social media that you're consuming when you're seeing these things. Maybe you need to cut that back because you can control that. Any more thoughts like that, Greg? Because that's there again. I think that kind of ties into what we've discussed here today, where people will just focus so much on them, what they're thinking, what they're doing, and how it just messes up people's lives. It's unfortunate, and it doesn't need to be that way. Uh, yeah. Anyways, help me with that. Is any more thoughts with that part?
Yeah, I think, one thing that you said is I think people, they have their own beliefs and they believe that is correct. And we all want to be right. You know what I mean? It's like part of that
Yes.
control factor of like we want to
Right.
be in control. We want to feel like we're safe or we're doing the right thing. And then when we feel something like a political stance, in my opinion, like there is no right or wrong. It's just an opinion of like
It's an opinion.
who do you vibe more with? Who do you
Right.
agree more with, the left or the right or whatever. But there's yeah, and the more that you want to change somebody, that's where all these arguments kind of come from is, well, I'm right and you're wrong,
Right.
instead of like, well, I see where you're coming from because you grew up with these kind of parents or in this, 50 years ago as opposed to 20 years ago, right? So it's like instead of just saying, "Oh yeah, well, let the 20-year-old believe that, you know, um, that they know everything or they don't know whatever it is," right? It's all right, cool. That's your opinion. That's what you want to believe. I don't see it that way, but we can still have a good conversation, or we can choose, like you're saying, just to not engage in that conversation and think about something that we can control that is going to help us move forward in life, think about positive things, eat a better diet, whatever that is. So it makes you happier at the end of the day, as opposed to arguing and trying to be right over something that an argument you can never really win.
Because there's nothing to win. I mean, it's like,
Yeah. What's the
what has it
prize?
accomplished? Yeah, I love that. So you're right. It's 100% control, trying to get people to believe that you're right. And yes, you're 100% accurate with that. It's like my mind is exploding with thoughts, all kinds of things. I'm trying to think of how I want to articulate them, and I think I'm just going to keep them within for now, because yeah, it's almost like you're spurring off all kinds of thoughts within my own mind. So let's just bring this back into, if you are experiencing those things in your own life, meaning if you're on social media or even if you're just out, like we've used the driving as an example today, if you are experiencing these emotions of being triggered, I've talked about triggers in the past, uh, to where it really spurs off this, how dare they, or how dare them, or it's they're the problem, or it's if you have the feeling that it's outside of you is the issue, and it stirs up. I've talked about for myself. You'll feel your blood pressure rise. Maybe your temperature will increase. Right? Maybe you start to sweat. The point is that you need to become aware that those things are happening, and the awareness allows you then to take a different decision. Right? Take a different path. You mentioned earlier about just letting it go. You had that conversation with your wife. Just let it go. Just let it go. And you'll see instantly, if you can start getting into a habit of doing that, how much better your life is going to end up being. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like you said, you're not going to win. There's nothing to win.
Right.
The argument doesn't need to be fought. It's like it's an amazing thing that people are using their own energy to try to win fights that can't be won because there's nothing to win. So that's what I want to encourage you folks today, is to really think about that. Think about if you're allowing them, the folks that are in your proximity, whether you know them or not, to control your emotions, to control your thoughts. And if you're allowing that to happen on a consistent basis, become aware of it, number one. And then number two, what are the things that you can do today to start being in control of yourself? That's where I'm always encouraging you to start the journaling process. That's been the biggest thing for me, is it allows me then to get my own thoughts on a daily basis out on paper, which then it makes it real. It makes it like obvious when I'm having these emotions, because I have good days and I have bad days too. I don't want to come across thinking that I'm perfect at this, because I'm not, but I'm ever trying to increase my ability to become aware when it does happen, because then I can respond differently, which is going to get me a better result. So, man, I love the fact that you brought this to my attention. It's like you've got me all fired up thinking about this. I just need to even get better at it. It's
Hmm.
practice. You just need to get better at practicing recognizing these things when they're going on in your life. So, yeah, thanks so much for bringing this to my attention. I'm glad we had a conversation about it. Is there anything else you want to kind of tie into this to correlate with the them theory, or the theory of them? Is that what it was called again? Remind me about that book title. Tell us again.
The Let Them Theory by
The
Mel
Let Them
Robbins.
Theory, Mel Robbins. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to grab that book. That's fantastic.
I think
Anything
the
else to go along with it?
Yeah, I think just to kind of like wrap up on my end, I think it's once you start doing it and really keep it top of mind, you'll realize how many times you can apply this in a day. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Like you can even like, I don't know, you're not gonna keep track of it, but you can be like, oh, can I apply this, this let them theory to X, Y, and Z? And it's pretty freeing. Like once you quickly, like talking about self-awareness, if you quickly realize it and you say, all right, let me apply this real quick, like let them spend their money on this kind of vacation. Oh, it looks great. They're going around the world and they're doing this, but let them do that. They have the freedom to do that. They want to do that. Cool. I'm sure they'll, whatever. Let them do that, and then let me focus on what I need to focus on. Let me not be triggered or jealous because they are living a different life, right? Or something to that effect. And if you can kind of just take a 30-second exercise every time something like that happens, it's pretty freeing once you can kind of run through the cycle. So I would encourage our listeners, and even you, Randy, just to like be more aware of how can I use this let them theory, and then bring it back to let me do this, X, Y, and Z. I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool exercise. So
I love it. I mean, I'm just sitting here nodding the entire time you're talking, because you're right. It just this whole totally resonates with what I'm trying to do daily. Like I said, it's not a perfect thing for myself, but I'm trying to actively be a participant in the way I think and the emotions that arise. Right. And as I continue to do that, I am, like you said, it's like you just experience life differently. For myself, it's been a lot more fun. We've had some things show up in our own family's life here in the last couple of weeks that, had I not been doing these exercises for myself, I would have reacted or responded completely different than the way I did. And when I sit back and think about, like you said, the awareness piece, right? So when I sit back even after the fact and I really just sit with that for a minute and I think, wow, just that different response is going to, it sends our life in a completely different trajectory. If I
yep,
would show up in a different way, negative, whatever, it doesn't really matter the emotion I would share. But anyways, it would just be different. So just think about the different paths, where that will lead. And like you said, it's a huge impact, not only on my own life, because it lessens the amount of stress that's going on in my own mind, but then it also alleviates a lot of stress that's going on with the different situations that are going on in my life as well. So I love that. Focus on let them, but then let's focus on, me, right? Focus on me, my thoughts, my emotions, my responses. I love that, man. I love it. I absolutely love it. So, yeah, like I said, thanks for bringing this to our attention here today. So, folks, hopefully you found this message valuable. Greg and I are working hard. We're trying to come up with all kinds of things that, different stories, different. It's like even this book, right? We're always on the lookout for different podcast episodes, different books that are generating like different conversations that we're having in our own heads. So it's like we're actively trying to work on these things in our own lives, but we're trying to find it from a different spin. So coming at it from a different angle, letting you see things from different perspectives, I think will help you, if you can really internalize them, can really, there again, make some different decisions, which is going to then obviously give you different, hopefully potentially better results moving forward, which is the goal, definitely moving forward here for you and for us here on the podcast. So we definitely appreciate your time and attention here with us today. Go out there and you can find us on richmind.co. Download, check out some of the blog posts we've made. So if you'd rather read some of the content we're producing, Greg's been actively working really hard on getting a lot of the content produced into a blog format. And so definitely head over to richmind.co. If you'd like to reach out to each of us individually, you can head over to info@richmind.co and send us an email. Let us know your thoughts. We greatly appreciate that as well. So, the next episode, we're going to get into the topic of patterns and habits. It kind of correlates with kind of what we're talking about here today. We're trying to kind of string along the episodes. So, one's going to build upon the next. That's kind of the idea that what I want to try to bring to you moving forward. So, the idea next week or the next episode is that we're going to talk about some patterns, some habits, understanding, once again, becoming aware of some of these habits and patterns and how they can impact your life moving forward. So that's going to be a fun conversation as well. So once again, we appreciate your time and attention. Go out there and leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And we'll look forward to coming back with the next episode again very soon. Until then, bye now.